Recording in progress.
Oh. Mm-hmm. So, have you eaten? Oh, no. Yes. You didn't finish it? Okay. Mm-hmm. When you finish your shift, I still won't sweat now after bathing. The kitchen is not in the mess.
Distinguished members, ladies and gentlemen, the time is slightly beyond 11:30, and I'm pleased to declare the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC's 2021 Annual General Meeting open. The Group Company Secretary has advised me that a quorum has been formed. I'm pleased to welcome you to this meeting, which has been duly convened and properly constituted. In line with the CA guidelines issued by the Corporate Affairs Commission on holding of AGM of companies using proxies, this AGM is holding by proxy to ensure compliance with the current Federal Capital Territories COVID-19 protocols. Although you would not be able to attend this historic meeting physically, historic because this is our first AGM post-demutualization, arrangements have been made for the meeting to be streamed live. The relevant link for this has also been shared with the shareholders, and you'll be able to follow the proceedings step by step. My name is Otumba Abimbola Ogunbanjo, the chairman of the board of directors, and I would like to introduce the other proxies that were appointed, some of whom are also members of the board as follows. Mr. Oscar Onyema, OON, GCEO, to my right. Mr. Apollos Ikobe, Dr. Okechukwu Itain, Professor Enase Onet virtually, Mrs. Ojinika Olage, Mrs. Fatima Bello Ismail, Dr. Umaru Kwaranga, Chief Patrick Ezeagu, Mr. Emeka Maduibike. I would also like to introduce the other directors, apart from those that are proxies, that are present physically. Mr. Oluwole Adeoshun, Mr. Chidi Agbapu, Mr. Pat Ajayi. Seated to my right is the Group Chief Executive Oscar Onyema, and to my left is the Group Company Secretary, Mrs. Mojusola Adeola. We also have members of the Group Executive Committee present, Mr. Temiko Kuala, CEO of the Nigerian Exchange, Ms. Tinuade Awe, the CEO of NGX Regulation, Mr. Gabriel Igbepa, Acting CEO of Nigerian Real Estate Limited. I would also like to introduce our registrars, Datamarks registrars, represented by Mrs. Misa Kofi-Sanaya, our external auditors, KPMG Professional Services, represented by Goke Oyelami, and the sex representative. It's all right. You're welcome. I will now call on the company secretary to read the notice convening the meeting.
Good morning again, members of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC. Notice of the 60th Annual General Meeting. Notice is hereby given that the 60th Annual General Meeting of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC, formerly Nigerian Stock Exchange, will hold at Transcorp Hilton Hotel, Abuja, on Thursday, 9 September 2021 at 11:30 a.m. prompt to transact ordinary business. 1, to present the audited financial statements of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC for the year ended 31 December 2020, and the reports of the National Council and the auditors thereon. To re-elect the following non-executive directors that are retiring by rotation. 1, Mr. Patrick Ajayi, Mr. Oluwole Adeoshu, and Mr. Chidi Abapu. To authorize the board to fix the remuneration of auditors, disclosure of remuneration of managers of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC, to elect members of the Statutory Audit Committee, I beg your pardon, special business, to consider and if thought fit, pass with or without any modification, the following as an ordinary resolution to fix the remuneration of non-executive directors of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC. It is approved that the fees payable shall be 8 million per annum and 5 million per annum to the chairman and other directors respectively. For the year 2021, the remuneration shall take effect from 1st of March 2021 and shall be prorated accordingly. The fees shall be payable quarterly in arrears or at such intervals agreed by the board. 7, to consider and if thought fit, pass as a special resolution with or without any modification that the board of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC be and is hereby authorized to pay a total sum of 126 million to all non-executive members of the erstwhile National Council of the Nigerian Stock Exchange as at 31st December 2020. 8, to consider and if thought fit, pass the following subjoined resolutions as an ordinary resolution. Roman numeral 1, that further to members' approval at the extraordinary general meeting of 3 March 2020 for the establishment of an employee share ownership plan for the benefit of qualifying employees of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC and its subsidiaries, that the company be and is hereby authorized to issue and allot 200,419,990 ordinary shares of 50 kobo each out of the authorized share capital of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC for the operation of the long-term incentive plan consisting of a deferred bonus plan and an employee share purchase plan with effect from 1 January 2021, subject to obtaining requisite regulatory approvals. That the board be and is hereby authorized to establish and operate a DPB for the benefit of qualifying members of senior and executive management of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC and its subsidiaries, and an ESPP open to all employees of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC and its subsidiaries. The relevant details of the DBP and ESPP are contained in the explanatory note attached to this notice. Roman numeral 3, that the board of directors be and is hereby authorized to establish an employee trust to oversee the administration of the DBP and ESPP. Roman numeral 4, that the board of directors and management be and are hereby authorized to draft relevant rules and policies, take all such actions, execute and deliver all such documents as may be deemed necessary or appropriate for the effective administration of the DBP and ESPP, and to give effect to the foregoing resolutions and to ensure compliance with extant laws, tax laws, securities laws, etc., and regulations. Note, proxy. Shareholders entitled to attend and vote at the annual general meeting is entitled to appoint to attend and vote in its stead a proxy that need not be a shareholder. Blank proxy forms are attached to the notice and may be downloaded from Nigerian Exchange Group's website. All instruments of proxies should be duly stamped at the stamp duties office and deposited at either the registered office address of the exchange or that of the registrars at least 48 hours before the time of holding the meeting. Dated this 16th day of August 2021 by order of the board, signed Mojisola Adiola. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Distinguished shareholders, I'd like to draw your attention to pages 6 to 10 of the annual report, which contains the chairman's statement. But due to the exigencies of time, I would like to ask your kind permission that the report be taken as read. Thank you. I would also like to inform you that the register showing the director's shareholding is available for inspection during the meeting, and the register of members and director service contracts are also available for citing by members. I would now like to invite Mrs. KPMG to read the report of the auditors on the account, which had been earlier circulated to all members in compliance with the statutory requirements.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And good morning, everyone. To all members of NGX Exchange, I crave your indulgence to take an abridged version of the report, and also to the board and Mr. Chairman, if that is okay.
Yes, please.
All right, thank you very much. The auditor's report is available on pages 66 to 67 of the annual financial statement. Independent auditor's report to the members of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, report on the audit of the consolidated and separate financial statement. Opinion. We have audited the consolidated and separate financial statement of the Nigerian Stock Exchange and its subsidiaries, together the group, which comprise the consolidated and separate statement of financial position as at 31st December 2020, the consolidated and separate statement of comprehensive income, the consolidated and separate statement of cash flows for the year ended, and the notes and comprising significant accounting policies and other explanatory information. In our opinion, the consolidated financial statement 1st December 2020 and of the consolidated and separate financial performance and its consolidated and separate of our knowledge and belief when necessary for the purpose of our audit. In our opinion, proper books of accounts have been kept by the exchange so far as appears from the examination of those books, and proper return adequate for the purpose of our audit have been received from branches not visited by us. The exchange statement of financial position and statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income are in agreement with the books of accounts and returns, signed by myself on behalf of KPMG, dated 11 June 2021. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Oyelami. Distinguished shareholders, NGX Group has received a total of 85 proxy forms submitted within the stipulated timeline in respect of this meeting. As a quorum has now been formed, we can now proceed with the business of the meeting. Unless a poll is validly called in compliance with the provisions of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, voting on the resolutions will be by show of hands, which should entail recognizing each shareholder's vote either by proxy, as they have either instructed their proxies to vote, or as the proxies vote on their behalf, whether they do not indicate how the proxy should vote, or for those present in person will be counted as representing one interest in NGX Group PLC. However, where a poll is called, each shareholder's vote would be dependent on the number of shares that they hold. As I had advised earlier, this AGM is by proxy, and 85 members have sent in their proxy forms, while a total of 63 members expressly indicated how they would cast their votes. 6 members did not indicate and have left this to the discretion of their appointed proxies, who have chosen to vote in support of the resolution. A summary of the split of the 85 proxy forms and instructions on how to vote have already been stated. For the members present, the registrars have recorded on the e-voting pad assigned to you when you arrived, one voting representing your interest in the exchange. Please note that we received a request to call a poll from VFD Group through its proxy, Professor Okunedo. And I have been advised that the CAMA 2020 provides for the persons who can call for a poll as follows. 1, the chairman, where he is a shareholder or a proxy. 2, at least 3 members present in person or by proxy. 3, any member or members present in person or by proxy and representing not less than 1/10 of the total voting rights of all the members having the right to vote at the meeting. Or 4, any member or members holding shares in the company conferring a right to vote at the meeting, being shares on which an aggregate sum has been paid up equal to not less than 1/10 of the total sum paid on all the shares conferring that right. It should be noted that VFD does not currently hold up to 1/10 of the total shares in the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC, as their shareholding as of 18th August 2021, which is the closure date of the register for purpose of qualification at this AGM, was 56,401,869 shares, representing 2.87% of the total shareholding. Neither does its aggregate sum of its shares amount to 1/10 of the total sum paid on all shares. Please note that because the shares in the company were credited as fully paid up at demutualization, the amount to be used to determine the total sum paid up for the shares is the nominal value of 50 kobo each. The total number of shares issued, including the claims review shares of 40,083,999, is 2,004,199,917. So the total accounted as fully paid up for the issued shares is 1,002,098,958 naira. 1/10 of this is 100,209,995 0.85, while the amount that would be accounted as paid up by the VFD for its 56,401,869 shares is 28,200,934 naira 50 kobo. In that regard, the VFD do not have a right to call a poll. The registrars will now give the requisite voting instructions.
This video is on how to use the electronic voting pad device. Voting pad usage instructions. Please note that the device is only required during the voting session of this meeting. How to use the voting device. Press the Sign In button to activate the voting device. When the status indicator flashes red, the device is ready for use. Press the Yes button to vote in favor of a resolution, or press the No button to vote against a resolution. Only press the ABS button if you do not wish to vote on a resolution. Please press only one of the buttons to cast your vote. You have only 1 minute to vote for each resolution. However, if you press the Yes or No button more than once, the last button pressed before the end of the voting period will be registered as your vote. Please return the e-voting devices to the ushers after the voting session has been concluded. An alarm will be triggered at the exit points if you still have the voting device with you when you leave the meeting hall. Kindly check your pocket and bag to ensure that the device is returned.
Thank you very much, Datamax, for the video explaining the voting procedure. I now lay and present the annual report and audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2020, but I will invite questions relating to them from any shareholder. Please also recall that NGX had requested that shareholders with questions or comments should forward them ahead of the meeting to the designated email address created for this purpose. In response to this, NGX Group received 2 questions from Mr. Folorunsho Olowogoke, and I would read them out and provide the response to those questions. First question: I want to know what measures are being put in place as the company transitions from non-profit making to profit making so that it actually makes profit? And what can shareholders look forward to in the medium and long term in terms of profitability and dividend payment? In response to Mr. Olowogoke, should note that the group has a diversified business model poised to drive attractive returns. And the revenue streams, those diversified revenue streams, include dividend income from its subsidiaries, which is the operating exchange and the real estate company, dividend income from its associate companies, which is the CSCS and NG Clearing, interest income from its treasury activities, and dividend income from other equity interests, such as its investments in NASD and the FMDQ, Requid, and Tesla's network services, as well as Eastwell Solutions Limited. The group aims to optimize profitability as much as possible through partnerships, investments, and innovation. Our dividend policy will be communicated in due course. Regarding the company's profitability and dividend payment in the medium and long term, we will engage shareholders in due course with that dividend policy. Ladies and gentlemen, in view of time constraints, we'll not be able to take any further questions. For members participating remotely, you can still send your questions to ir@ngxgroup.com and we will endeavor to send a response. I now come to the ordinary business number 2, the re-election of non-executive directors that are retiring by rotation. The second item on the agenda is the re-election of non-executive directors that are retiring by rotation. And in line with Section 287 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, we will present the resolution for the re-election of each director as separate resolutions. Mr. Patrick Ajayi is retiring by rotation at this AGM and being eligible hereby offers himself for re-election in accordance with Section 285 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020. This resolution is displayed and the registrar will prompt us when the voting process begins and ends. May I have a member move the motion for the re-election of Mr. Ajayi? Thank you, Dr. No.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our distinguished shareholders, good morning. My name is Umaru Kwairanga, representing Finmal Finance Services Limited. And I have 2 proxies of APT Securities by Kasim Kurufi and Alhaji Dr. Umaru Mutalab. I hereby move the ordinary resolution for the re-election of Mr. Patrick Ajayi. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Kwairanga. Would somebody please rise to second the motion? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Abi Mahmoud. I second the motion just moved by Dr. Umaru Kwairanga.
Thank you very much, Malam Abi Mahmoud-san, for that. I now put the motion to the meeting for voting.
Voting has started. 17 minutes, seconds left. Please press the votes. There are only 4 people, so. Well, Chairman, at the end of voting, 80.46% of shareholders present in person or by proxy voted in favor of the resolution.
The motion unanimously carried. Thank you. Was it majority? Yes. Okay, thank you. I congratulate you, Mr. Ajayi, on this re-election. Thank you. The next resolution is for the election of Mr. Oluwole Adeosun, who is also retiring by rotation at this AGM. Being eligible, he hereby offers himself for re-election in accordance with Section 285 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act. This resolution is displayed and the registrar will prompt us when the voting process begins. In the meantime, can I have a member move the motion for the re-election of Mr. Oluwole Adeosun?
Very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dr. Umaru Kwairanga, representing Female Finance Services and holding 2 proxies from APT and Dr. Umaru Mutalab. I hereby move for the re-election of Mr. Oluwole Adeosun. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Kwairanga. Can I have a member second that motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, Chief Ezago, representing Solid Rock Securities and Investment PLC, do here second the motion. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chief. I now put the motion to the meeting for voting.
Voting has started. Four more seconds left. Voting is over. Chairman,
Yes.
at the end of voting on this resolution, Again, 80.34% of shareholders present in person or by proxy voted in favor of the resolution.
Thank you very much, Data Max. I declare the motion carried by majority. I hereby congratulate you, Mr. Adeosun, on your re-election to the board. Thank you. The next resolution is for the re-election of Mr. Chidi Agbaku, who is retiring by rotation at this AGM. And being eligible, Mr. Agbaku hereby offers himself for re-election in accordance with Section 285 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020. This resolution is displayed and the registrar will prompt us when the voting process begins and ends. May I have a member move for the resolution to re-elect Mr. Agbaku?
My name is Fatima Binta Bello Ismail. I represent two shareholders, Omar Abba Gana and Muntari Dangana. I hereby second the motion to re-elect Philip Abapu. To move for the re-election of Chidi Abapu.
Thank you. Thank you, Hajia. May I have a member second the motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Apollos Kobe. I'm representing one shareholder whose proxy I hold, and I second the ordinary resolution for the re-election of Mr. Chidi Abapu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kobe. I now put the motion to the meeting for voting. Please use your e-voting device, and Data Max, can you just inform us when you have commenced?
Voting is started, please. Voting is over. At the end of voting, 80.34% of shareholders present in person or by proxy voted in favor of the resolution. One shareholder abstained on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Max. I declare the motion carried by the majority and congratulate you, Mr. Agbaku, on your re-election. Distinguished shareholders, the third item on the agenda is to authorize the board to fix the remuneration of Messrs. KPMG Professional Services, the company's independent auditors. Pursuant to Section 408(1)(b) of the CAMA, please note that KPMG has indicated its willingness to continue to serve as the exchange's auditors. In the light of this, Section 412 of the CAMA permits the retiring auditors, KPMG, to be reappointed without any resolution being passed. KPMG is therefore reappointed as auditors of the exchange. This resolution is displayed and the registrar will prompt us when the voting process begins and ends. Can I have a member move the motion that the board be and is hereby authorized to fix the remuneration and expenses of the auditors in respect of the audit to be conducted for the year ending December 31st, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And other members present, I, Chief Ezago, representing Solid Rock Securities and Investment PLC, and 17 other proxies that I hold and represent, move the ordinary motion to authorize the board to fix the remuneration of the auditors. So move.
Thank you very much, Chief. Would the member please rise to second that motion?
I, Apollos Kobe, second the motion, the ordinary resolution authorizing the board to fix the remuneration of the auditors.
Thank you very much, Apollos. I now put the motion to the meeting for voting.
Voting is started. 8 seconds, 7. Voting is over. At the end of voting, 80.46% of shareholders present in person or by proxy voted in favor of the resolutions. 19.54 voted against the resolution, and there were no abstentions.
Thank you, Madam. I declare the motion carried by majority. Thank you. I now turn to item business number 4, which is the disclosure of remuneration of managers. The Companies and Allied Matters Act provides in section 257 that the compensation of managers of a company shall be disclosed to members of the company at the annual general meeting. In this regard, shareholders are requested to note the disclosure of the remuneration of managers as contained in pages 105 to 106 of the annual report. If there are any questions regarding the remuneration of managers, if there are none, we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is ordinary resolution number 5, and the election of members of the Statutory Audit Committee. Pursuant to the provisions of section 443 to 5 of CAMA 2020, every public company shall have an audit committee, which shall consist of 5 members comprising of 3 shareholder representatives and 2 non-executive directors. The members of the audit committee are not entitled to remuneration and are subject to election annually. The audit committee shall examine the auditor's report and make recommendations at the general meeting as it may deem fit. All members of the audit committee shall be financially literate, and at least 1 member shall be a member of a professional accounting body in Nigeria established by an act of the National Assembly. Following the demutualization and conversion re-registration of the company as a public company limited by shares, the shareholders in general meeting are now required to elect members of the audit committee. Leading up to this election at the forthcoming AGM, in accordance with section 4046 of CAMA 2020, a shareholder may nominate another shareholder for election as a member of the Statutory Audit Committee by giving notice in writing of such nomination to the company secretary at least 21 days before the annual general meeting, and any nomination not received prior to the meeting as stipulated is invalid. While making nominations, shareholders are to be guided by the statutory requirements on the qualification of members of the audit committee. The nomination should also include the curriculum vitae and/or profile of the nominee. The directors have resolved to appoint 2 of their members to represent the board on the audit committee, and they are Mr. Oluwole Adeosun. Thank you. And Mrs. Ojinika Olagere. Thank you. Only 3 shareholders are required to join the 2 directors to bring the number to the maximum of 5. Please note that 4 nominations were received by the company for the election of shareholders representatives. Out of those 4 nominations, only 3 were valid and would be standing for election. They are Mr. Peter Eyanuku, Mr. Peter Eyanuku. It's a proxy. Okay, oh, that's true. 2, Pivot Capital Limited, represented by Samuel Oluwadare Adejumo. And 3, Rencap Securities Limited, represented by Daniel Uguoke. Understandably, as this is a proxy meeting, we do not expect to have all of them here. We will now proceed to vote on each of the nominees. Please note that in compliance with the provisions of CAMA, voting on membership of audit committee cannot be conducted by way of a poll. I now call on Datamax to conduct the voting on each of the nominees. Oh, please, okay. Yes, I call on a member to move the motion.
I, Emeka Madobike, representing Compass Investments and Securities Limited and 16 other proxies, I hereby move the ordinary resolution for the election of Mr. Peter Eyanuka as a member of the Statutory Audit Committee.
Thank you very much. May I have a member second? Motion.
I, Fatima Binta Bello Ismail, representing 2 proxies, hereby second the election of Mr. Peter Eyanuka as a member of the Statutory Board Committee.
Thank you, Hajia. I now put the motion to vote.
Voting is over. Can we have the results, please? At the end of voting, 81 persons present in person, shareholders present in person or by proxy voted in favor of Mr. Peter Eyanuka, while 9 people voted against the election of Peter Eyanuka. Thank you, sir.
The motion is carried by the majority. Thank you. Pivot Capital. The resolution to elect Pivot Capital. May I call the shareholder to move the motion?
I, Dr. Umaru Kwairanga, a shareholder representing Finmal Finance Services and 2 other proxies, hereby move for the ordinary resolution to elect Pivot Capital Limited, represented by Samuel Adejumo, as a member of the Statutory Audit Committee.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kwairanga. May I have a shareholder second that motion?
I, Compass, Emeka representing Compass Investments and Securities Limited and 16 other proxies, second the motion. Pivot Securities, represented by Adejumo Adari, be elected as a member of the Statutory Audit Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madubike. I now put the motion to the vote.
Voting has started, please. Voting is over. At the end of voting, 80 shareholders present in person or by proxy voted in favor of Mr. Pivot Capital, representing 79.89%, and 10 shareholders voted against the resolution. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The motion is carried by the majority. Finally, I would like to ask us a shareholder to move the motion to elect the representative of RenCap Securities Limited, Daniel Ugoke, to the Audit Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I, Chief Ezagu, representing Shareholder Securities and Investment PLC, and 17 other proxies I represent, hereby move the ordinary motion to elect RenCap Securities, represented by Mr. Daniel Ugoke, as a member of the Statutory Audit Committee. So move.
Thank you for an ordinary resolution. Thank you. Member second.
Mr. Chairman, I, Apollos Kwebe, representing 1 shareholder whose proxy I hold, second the ordinary resolution to elect RenCap Securities as represented by Mr. Daniel Ugoke as a member of the Statutory Audit Committee.
Thank you very much, Apollos. I now put the motion to vote.
Voting is over. At the end of voting, 79.87% of shareholders present in person or by proxy voted in favor of the election of RenCap Securities presented by Daniel Silgukwe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Max. I congratulate all the individuals and firms on their election as members of the Statutory Audit Committee. Thank you very much. I now move on to special business number 1, remuneration of the non-executive directors. The 6th item on the agenda is to consider and if thought fit, pass with or without any modifications, the following as an ordinary resolution to fix the remuneration of non-executive directors. The board has proposed that shareholders should approve the annual fees payable to the NEDs, and the proposed fees payable to NEDs is as follows: 8 million naira per annum for the chairman, 5 million naira per annum for other directors. For the year 2021, the remuneration shall take effect from 1st March 2021 and shall be prorated accordingly. The fees shall be payable quarterly in arrears or at such other intervals agreed by the board. The resolution is displayed and the registrar will prompt us when the voting process begins and ends. This motion, being an ordinary resolution, must receive a majority of the votes of members present and voting in person or by proxy for its adoption. Can I have a member move a motion for the above resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I, Onyenwechukwu Ezeagu, representing Solid Rock Securities and Investment PLC, and 17 other proxies that I represent, hereby moved the ordinary resolution to fix the remuneration of the non-executive directors. That is 8 million per annum for the chairman and 5 million per annum for the other directors. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. May I have a seconder?
I am Ekama Dubike, representing Compass Investments and Securities Limited and 16 properties that I hold. Hereby second the ordinary resolution to fix the remuneration of NEDs. That is 8 million per annum for the chairman and 5 million per annum for other directors.
Thank you, Maka. And I'll put the motion to vote.
Voting has started, please. Voting is over. At the end of voting on the resolution, 80.46% of shareholders present in person or by proxy voted in favor of the resolution.
Thank you. The motion is carried by the majority. Thank you very much, distinguished shareholders. Special business number 2, remuneration of non-executive members of the erstwhile National Council of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. The 7th item on the agenda is to consider, and if thought fit, pass as a special resolution that the Board of Directors of the Nigerian Exchange Group B and is hereby authorized to pay a total sum of 126 million to all non-executive members of the erstwhile National Council of the Nigerian Stock Exchange as of 31st December 2020. The resolution is displayed and the registrar will prompt us when the voting process begins and ends. This motion, being a special resolution, must receive a majority of the votes of members present and voting in person or by proxy. Can I have a member move the motion for the above resolution, please?
Mr. Chairman, I, Emeka Madubike, representing Compass Investments and Securities Limited and 16
1st January 2021, subject to obtaining requisite regulatory approvals. That the Board of Directors be and is hereby authorized to establish and operate a DPP for the benefit of qualifying members of the senior and executive management of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC and its subsidiaries, and an ESPP open to all employees of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC and its subsidiaries. The relevant details of the DBP and ESPP are contained in the explanatory note attached to this notice. C, that the Board of Directors be and is hereby authorized to establish an employee trust to oversee the administration of the DBP and the ESPP. D, that the Board of Directors and management be and are hereby authorized to draft relevant rules and policies, take all such actions, execute and deliver all such documents as may be deemed necessary or appropriate for the effective administration of the DBP and ESPP, and to give effect to the foregoing resolutions and to ensure compliance with the extant laws and regulations. With regards to this resolution, we received the following question from VFD Group through its proxy, and I would list them and seriatim and provide the responses received from Mrs. KPMG Professional Services, that is the consultant engaged to assist us with the process following a robust request for proposal exercise. 1, they asked for a detailed framework on how the Board of Directors intends to establish and operate the deferred bonus plan. Now, the first activity is to obtain AGM approval for the scheme. The second is to draft the scheme rules, document, trust deed, offer and acceptance offer, and the vesting letter. The third is to obtain the Securities Exchange Commission approval of the scheme, set up the employee trust with funding, appoint employee representatives to act as trustees, issue approved shares to the trust and update the shareholder register. The board then approves the holdco and the business units KPIs and targets for the scheme. The board then approves and lists the list of eligible staff and other allocations. They draw up staff communication and an engagement plan and execute. Trust issues offers to eligible staff and obtain executed acceptance letter from them. Book the financials and annualize cost of grants. Track the performance and KPIs across all tiers to determine vesting at the end of each year. You will recall that the AGM and the court-ordered meeting that we had last year authorized the board to process this exercise. So it is this meeting now that is giving us the approval to implement the prior authority that you had given the board. Second question, what is the exact cost implication for the issuance of the 200,419,990 ordinary shares to be issued pursuant to the Employee Share Purchase Plan and the DBP, together the schemes? The cost of shares to be issued based on the median share price post-demutualization of 23 naira 50 kobo per share, as per our report, the cost of 200 million shares is 4.71 billion naira. This does not consider the discounted price paid by staff for the share purchase plan, which will reduce the outlay over time. If the share purchase by employees is considered, assuming all the available shares are bought up by the staff, the purchase consideration from staff at 20% discount is about 1.9 billion naira. Since part of the shares are paid for, this will reduce the outlay from 4.71 billion to 2.83 billion. Assuming the shares are used up over 6 cycles, the annual cost of the shares will be about 471 million naira. This only relates to the 200 million plus shares. There is a 40% of the annual bonus that is not deferred in shares, which needs to be considered. The immediate portion of the DBP, based on in the illustration in our report, about 604 million naira will be required annually, out of which 60% is deferred in shares. 40% of this will be about 241 million naira. Added to 471 million above, the overall annual cost will be about 712 million naira. For the accounting booking in the financials, the 721 million naira is expected to be amortized over the vesting period as appropriate. At the onset, this annualized outlay is therefore not the expense to be booked in the financial statements. It is only a cash outlay. The expense is to be booked every year, will depend on number of awards granted, amortized over the vesting period for each grant. Each entity within the NGX group will bear the expense in respect of their participating employees. For simplicity, we can take the 712.5 million as a worst case scenario of the annual expense. Please note that the above 4.71 billion naira assumes that the 200 million naira plus shares are to be acquired en bloc and held in trust for employees to be allocated over time. Otherwise, if the shares are to be issued or acquired on a need basis every year, the cost will be progressive, but overall higher, as the share price is expected to keep rising, all things being equal. Administrative costs, share issue documentation costs. NGX Legal can advise on this, and they can provide that advice to VFD directly. The structure and ownership of the employee trust for the schemes, that is the third question that they asked. And the answer to that is that it is an internal trust. The shares will be vested in the employee representatives, i.e. the trustees. Typically, the trust may be set up as an agent with a clause that assures independence of the employee representatives in running the scheme. Our belief is that for accounting purposes, such structure should qualify the trust to be treated as a legal entity. An external trust company can also be engaged to administer the plan. Distinguished shareholders, the resolution is displayed and the registrar will prompt us when the voting process begins and ends. These motions being ordinary resolutions must receive a majority of the votes of members present and voting at the annual general meeting for its adoption. Accordingly, may I have a member move for the above resolution?
Mr. Chairman, again, having listened to the explanations we have provided through, I'm much more convinced to move this resolution, this motion. And so I, Chief Zago, representing Solid Rock Securities and Investment PLC, and the 17 proxies hereby move the ordinary resolution allotting 200,419,900 ordinary shares for the operation of the long-term incentive plan and the subjoined resolutions. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Hajia, may I have a member? Yes, second the motion.
Yes, I, Fatima Bintabello Ismail, representing the two shareholders whose proxy I hold, hereby second the ordinary resolutions allotting 200,419,900 naira, 900 ordinary shares for the operation of the long-term incentive plan and the subjoined resolution.
Thank you very much, Hajia. Data Max, will you now conduct the voting?
Voting has started, please. Voting is over. At the end of voting, 80.46% of shareholders present in person or by proxy voted in favor of the resolution. There were no abstentions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Data Max. The motion is carried by the majority. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, We've now dealt with all the formal businesses of the annual general meeting, and it remains for me to thank you all on behalf of the board for attending this meeting and showing so much interest in the affairs of the NGX group. I now declare this 60th annual general meeting closed. We did not have a closing opening prayer, but I will ask Alhaji Dr. Kwaranga to give us a closing prayer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let us pray according to our faith. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Oh Allah, we thank you for this successful AGM. This is our first AGM of the new NGX, and we want to pray that you continue to guide us in the deliberations and handling the affairs with the responsibilities given to us. Let me conclude by reciting Fatiha. And this is the first time that we are bringing this AGM to Abuja, which is an FCT, which is the center. This has demonstrated that this is a Nigerian company. And people have seen the change that the mutualization is bringing. Sooner or later, inshallah, we'll get dividend. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmani Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, ihdinas siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim, ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amin.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, can we have the national anthem?